Hey guys, hope you guys are doing well today. Let me just pop on and do that other sound check real quick. Make sure we working. I got these haters working hard today, y'all. My haters stay working real hard. Y'all see how much I be posting every day? These haters always trying to flag every day. Oh, let me flag, because they have nothing else to do with their life. So all these haters out here, um, Jesus Christ. Okay, Glow over there talking about that in my video. Okay, let me do a sound check. Stop talking all this shit really quick. Yeah, okay, cool. Y'all know I love talking shit. As long as it's the good kind of shit, that's actually elevating me, and lifting me up and boosting me up. Because I've been spending enough time of my life surrounded with these crust ass birds like my mother trying to drag me down because she feel like shit about herself and was too lazy and pathetic even working as a mental health nurse. Now you know what's fucked up? When your mother is a mental health nurse with children and adults and you had to be the one to teach your own parent about mental health. Like, what are you talking about? This is your whole career for over 30 years and I'm the one teaching you mental health. Like, what is this? Anyway, not to mention the fact that we have been asking for help our whole childhood. um that's neither here nor there, but is exactly talking to this topic that we're going to be reading today, again from chapter 3. We're on page now, it's 82. Been skipping around. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how this book is working. Yeah, you're on 72, right? 72, 82. Oop, sorry. Anyway, I didn't think we're gonna have a quick wow. Okay. Yeah, this is really good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna come back to this. Okay, so abandonment through neglect of developmental dependency needs. As a children, as children, we had needs that depended on others for fulfillment. Children are dependent and needy. They need their parents for 15 years. Their dependency needs can only be satisfied by a caregiver. And the figure 3.5 outlines these needs. Children need someone to hold them and touch them. They need a face to mirror and affirm their feelings, needs, and drives. Children need a structure with limits. They need predictability. They need a mutually trusting relationship. They need to know there is someone they can count on. They need to have a space. Children need to have space and be different. They need security. They need to have enough nurturing food, clothing, shelter, adequate medical care. Children need their parents' time and attention. Children need direction in the form of problem solving techniques and strategies, all things that probably went missing. Need shame binds. When these needs are neglected, children are given a message that their needs are not important, and they lose a sense of their own personal value. They are not worth someone being there for them. Oof. Wow. They are not worth someone being there for them. They get the feeling they do not matter. As their needs are chronically rejected, children stop believing that they have the right to depend on anyone. Oof, Jesus. Their dependency needs rely on the interpersonal bridge and the bond of mutuality of their fulfillment. The interpersonal bridge is broken when one is abandoned through neglect. Since we have no one to depend on, we come to believe that we have no right to depend on anyone. We feel shame when we feel needy. Since these needs are basic, i.e., needs we cannot be fully human without, we have to get met. Um, since these needs are basic needs, i.e., needs we cannot be fully human without, we have to get them met in abortive ways. So, all alternative, roundabout ways. So this is a really great chart. You can probably find this online, but maybe you can take a quick screenshot. And so it goes through these different kind of like adult life, these needs. So the self value, stimulation. I will go through each of these in detail. Sociality, healthy primary caregivers, structure, security, and stroking. So this like ego stroking, saying positive things to someone. Yeah. So if we go back into the games people play, this is also a game that people use to. Uh, it's a book that explains the games and how people interact. The different methods of interacting is by Eric Burns, created in the 1950s, and they talk about different the gamification of social interaction, not like in the modern sense of gamification, like video games, but like in terms of a dance. If you want to see it in a dance, in terms of a dance or a play, like what kind of script is going on from one person to one person, how to act, how to behave in order to get the needs met. It's all about influence and the actions that you take. So for self-value, you have sense of mattering, taking seriously, a sense of being wanted for oneself, a sense of self being different, stimulation, pleasure, pain, fun, excitement, challenge, play, sociality, healthy caregivers, mirroring, echoing, affirmation of feelings, needs, times, interpersonal bridge, identification, need to nurture insignificant relationships. And the structure, direction, modeling, boundaries, predictability, having limit set, security, medical care, enough food, protection, clothing, shelter, stroking, attention, being recognized, being held and touched, encouragement, praise, and warmth. A neglected child may learn to get attention by getting in trouble or annoying his parents. One will drink muddy water when he is dying of thirst. I know of children who get in touch with and who get their touch and stimulation needs met by getting spanked. Much has been written about abortive adaptations. Suffice it to say that when one's dependency needs are not met in the proper time and in the proper sequence, the personality is arrested at those developmental stages. The child learns adaptive ways to get his own needs met. Over the course of time, as one experiences need deprivation, one loses awareness of these needs. Ultimately, one does not even know what one needs. Being abandoned through the neglect of our developmental dependency needs is a major factor in becoming an adult child. We grow up, we look like adults, we walk and talk like adults, but underneath the surface, there's a little child who feels empty and needy. A child whose needs are insatiable because the child's needs in an adult body, because the child has need, because he has a child's needs in an adult body. This insatiable child is the core of all compulsive and addictive behavior, probably the compulsive thinking, right? Also, too. In Max's case, in Max's case, many of his needs were converted into sexual feelings. This is what accounted for his severe sexual addiction. It is often a major dynamic in sexual addiction. Once a person is abandoned, especially through abuse, he is made into an object. And that's why people turn other people into an object. Max was used by his brother to alter his brother's shame. He was physically abandoned by his father. He was also used by the family system. To be used is to be made into an object, being objectified. Max objectified himself. Through his internalized shame, Max became an object of his own contempt, criticism, judgment, and scorn. He was his own object of rejection. To objectify self and others is to lose personhood. Since Max could no longer experience himself as a whole person, he could no longer experience anyone else as a whole person. Max spent hours hustling women. He was obsessed by women's breasts. He had no regard for women as people. He risked family and reputation to touch women's breasts in shopping malls or get a glance of them through voyeuristic activities. Another dynamic aspect of sexual conversion of basic needs is the pleasure of sex orgasm itself. When one is shamed through abandonment, the pain is deep and profound. One feels worthless. One feels painfully dismissed and exposed. When one experiences sexual stimulation and climax, one has available all-encompassing and powerful pleasure. This pleasure can take place of any other need. In A Point of Passage, Kaufman sums up the process of converting all needs into sexuality. He writes, a young boy who learns never to need anything emotionally from his parents is faced with a dilemma whenever he feels young, needy, or otherwise insecure. If masturbating has been his primary source of good feeling, he may resort to masturbation in order to restore good feelings about self at times when he is experiencing need quite unrealistic, unrelated to sexuality. So that's how this sexual release orgasm can become a replacement for all of the needs that you are not getting met that would create the positive good feelings. The ego defense of conversion transformed developmental needs into the need for something else. This could be food, money, excessive attention. In Max's case, it was sex. Over the course of his childhood, his developmental needs became associated with his sex drive. This eventually resulted in the conversion of emotional needing into sexuality. Whenever Max felt insecure, anxious, or needy, the inner event registered as sex drive. Max turned continually to sex for self nurturing. He was starving for, but that addictive sex simply cannot provide. So this is really, really, really interesting. The next section is going on to um, the family shame systems here. So we're going to skip that and amend them into a measurement because that's like a little bit going into a different topic. But one section that I do see here is called the internalized shame spiral, and I would like to read through that and to close it off with that. So this one is called the internal shame spirals. One experience of internalized shame is what Kaufman terms the internal shame spiral. He describes it as follows. A triggering event occurs. Perhaps it is trying to get close to someone and feeling rebuffed, or a critical remark by a friend. A person suddenly is enmeshed in shame. The eyes turn inward, and the experience becomes totally internal, frequently with visual imagery present. The shame feeling, the shame feelings flow in a circle, endlessly triggering the other, and the precipitating event is relived internally over and over, causing the sense of shame to deepen, to absorb other neutral experiences, until finally the self is engulfed. In this way, shame becomes paralyzing. The spiral, wow, this it really explains how, again, in that earlier part of this chapter, he was saying that the abuse and violence that bully used effectively allowed them to offload and bypass all of those negative feelings. It actually works. And so when I think about how my father did this to my mother to the point that she got cancer and almost died, like that's how serious this emotional abuse is. People say that emotional abuse is not physical because physical abuse has marks. Well, emotional abuse can literally lead you to get cancer and autoimmune diseases and all of these things. So when people say, be the bigger person, uh, take the higher road, is really disgusting because what they're telling you is to allow yourself to get cancer and disease and to die so that someone else can offload their energy onto you. Now, people don't want to talk about this, and therapists definitely don't want to say this because no therapist can say, there's a limit to how much therapists can say to stand up for yourself. But anytime that you letting somebody treat you like shit, you're basically just internalizing all of this negative emotion that's going to cause you to get sick, you know? And so being the bigger person is sometimes just ridiculous, If you have so insufficient boundaries that you cannot remain unaffected, obviously the ideal state would be to not be able would be to have boundaries, internal, mental, psychological boundaries, emotional boundaries, so that you're not impacted by what other people say. But if you are being impacted by what other people say, if you're at that point of your development, then it is much better, it seems, to externalize this shit back on the person who put it onto you to return the energy than to not do anything. Now, again, that's not the best, most enlightened state. The most enlightened or the ideal situation would be if you already have enough grounding and centeredness and sufficient boundaries to know that what the bullshit that someone else says to you doesn't have to impact you, says or does. But if it does, and you have to be honest with yourself, you cannot allow that to stay inside your body because it will lead to diseases. Like maybe there are other ways that you work through that, but from initial understanding, you cannot allow yourself to just keep taking on other people's negative emotions. Like it's ridiculous. It's not necessary. It's really not necessary. Continuing with the reading. The spiral is one of the most devastating aspects of dysfunctional shame. Once in motion, it can cause the reliving of other shameful experiences and thereby solidifies the shame further within the personality. After shame is internalized, the fear of exposure is magnified intensely. Exposure now means having one's essential defectiveness as a human being seen. To be exposed now means to be seen as irreparably and unspeakably bad. One must find a way to defend against such exposure, As the defenses and strategies of transference are developed, internalized shame becomes less and less conscious. Shame internalization has four consequences. A shame-based identity is formed. The depth of the shame is magnified and frozen. Autonomous shame activation and functional autonomy results. Um, and finally, internalized shame spirals are made operative. So this is talking about how shame really can kind of build the consequences of people throwing the shame onto you, and how people can do that, you know, to intentionally discharge these emotions. And so all of these things are so important as we learn to protect ourselves, to gain a better understanding of what's going on inside of our systems and inside of our own bodies, so that we can begin to free ourselves and liberate ourselves from these shame spirals, because this is just something that is not um it's not it's not something that is it's not something that is it's not something that's necessary for us to live with, and we really owe it to ourselves and our inner children to begin to free ourselves from that. And so, yeah, so I think that tomorrow we're going to come back to these ego defenses. Maybe um might pick it up at this section here. So this is kind of looking at different ego defenses, how things work. And yeah, we'll pick it up from there tomorrow, guys. So thank you. I hope you guys are having a great weekend and enjoy these readings. Take care, and I'll see you soon.